Welcome back to Shep's Chat. When we left off last time, we were in the middle of reserved powers, so we're going to kind of start over again. But the 10th Amendment is what gives us our reserved powers. That's found in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And it reserves powers to the states. So if it is not specifically delegated to the federal government or prohibited to the states, then it is a reserved power for the states. The examples that we kind of started to go through were to regulate state interest, state commerce, provide state militia, make laws not prohibited by the Constitution or given to the national government, the police power, legislate for health, morals, safety, welfare, and those types of things include marriage, education, contracts, crime, transportation, and land use. There's also something called concurrent powers. Concurrent means that it's shared between the national and the state government, and they're both allowed to do it. So if you think about our Venn diagram, those are things that they can each do. So you can pay federal and state taxes, or you do pay federal and state taxes. Both these states and the national government can borrow money. They can create courts. They both have police powers, and they can both establish banks. Those are powers that are shared. Prohibited powers. Prohibited means not allowed to. And one of the things that the government is not allowed to do is to tax exports. That's written directly into the Constitution. Why are they not allowed to tax exports? Does anybody remember? They are not allowed to tax exports because that was part of their compromises with the South. It was dependent upon the cotton. And the cotton didn't want to have their taxes put on the cotton because it was shipped overseas. Prohibited powers, powers not granted expressly or implicitly to the national government are prohibited and then would be reserved for the states or the people. And then prohibited powers, states are not allowed to make treaties with other nations. They're not independent nations, so they cannot make treaties. Only the national government is allowed to make treaties. If you look at this chart here, it looks kind of like our Venn diagram. You get the idea on the coin money, regular interstate and foreign trade. Those are obviously going to be powers delegated to the national government. And then providing for local governments, conducting elections, making laws, contracts, wills, etc., powers to the state. And then everything in the middle is kind of the concurrent powers. That's what they can both do. So this is a nice graphic organizer for you to go back to, especially when you're getting ready to study for the AP test, so you can look and see which powers are which, because that is something that you will want to know for your AP government test. Those are easy questions that they can put either on the FRQ or on the multiple choice part of the test. All right, the supremacy clause, Article 6, Clause 2 is extremely important. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. This is what is known as the Supremacy Clause, and it gives the federal government the power over the state government. States cannot use reserved or concurrent powers to prevent or undermine national policies. So as long as it is in the realm of national government's power, they have the final say. The states do not. National legislation in a concurrent area preempts conflicting state or local laws. So, going to marijuana. If you smoke a joint in Colorado because you bought it legally, are you breaking the law? Yes, 100%. You are breaking the law because of the Supremacy Clause. Both state and national government have police powers. They are both allowed to regulate drug use. National legislation in this area is going to preempt the state or local law. When national legislation says marijuana is illegal, marijuana is illegal. Whether you are in California, Nevada, Washington, Montana, wherever you are at, it is still illegal to smoke marijuana. All right, vertical versus horizontal checks and balances. Horizontal, there are three different branches of government. You have the judicial branch, you have the executive branch, and you have the legislative branch. That's a horizontal. They are all even. Like there's no one branch above the other. Horizontal. And then there's checks among these equal branches of government. They're all on the same level. So those checks would be vetoes, ratifying, the advice and consent that the Senate gives, and judicial review. That is horizontal checks. We also have vertical checks. And vertical checks and balances is going to be where it comes down to the national versus the state. So there's checks on the powers of the national government and state governments. So the way that they administer programs, the reserve powers, and the Commerce Clause is going to be specifically important for the federal government to protect state powers. So we think of vertical as national versus state because the national government really kind of is a here. And then horizontal is the three branches of checks and balances because they're all on the same level playing field. All right, interstate relations. How should states treat each other? What type of rights do you have as you move from state to state? Number one, give full faith and credit to every other state's public acts, records, and judicial proceedings. Number two, give privileges and immunities to the citizens of other states, just like they do the citizens of their state. And three, agree to return a person who is fleeing from justice. Number one, that's the full faith and credit clause. This allows for a more mobile society. No matter where you go, the laws or the contracts that you went into are supposed to be abided by. So if you sign a contract in Wisconsin, that contract is valid in New York. Just because you move from state to state does not change that. Where this became an issue, if we think back to gay marriage, when it was a state issue and had not been decided by the United States Supreme Court, different states were not abiding by the marriage laws passed in other states. So if you were married in Maine, it wouldn't be recognized in Tennessee. And then that officially became policy with the Defense of Marriage Act. This is not the case anymore, thanks to Obergefell v. Hodges, which totally declared gay marriage legal on a national basis, expanding the powers of the federal government. All right, privileges and immunities. So if you have a privilege to do something in the state of Wisconsin, you have the same privilege to do it if you are from Illinois and come to Wisconsin. You can hold a job, you can protest, you can travel freely throughout the state, you can buy a car, you can go shopping. Whatever you would like to do, you have the same privileges and immunities that everybody else from that state has, even if you don't live there. And then last, interstate extradition. So if you're charged with a crime in Wisconsin, but you flew to Illinois, you didn't go far enough. Illinois is going to bring you back to Wisconsin. So we will extradite you from state to state. So don't commit a crime in Wisconsin and think just because you're in Illinois that you're going to be okay. All right, McCulloch v. Maryland. This is one we've talked about quite a bit, but it gives the federal government an immense amount of power. This is where we see the necessary and proper clause, or the elastic clause, which carries out the express powers. So the government can do what is necessary and proper to carry out their expressed powers. This expands their powers greatly, especially when it comes to something called the Interstate Commerce Clause. So the federal government controls interstate commerce. So any commerce that happens between the states. You're going to see that when it comes to marijuana, you're going to see that when it comes to guns. Pretty much everything can be covered under this interstate commerce, unless you're talking about Brady v. Lopez, at which point you should know that they said, no, that is not commerce. So McCulloch v. Maryland expands federal powers and expands federalism, and then court cases like U.S. v. Lopez